Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Amy Ackerman, the Assistant Branch Manager at the Main Library of the St. Johns County Public Library System. Today, we're very lucky to have our special guest, Terra Freeman, join us. She is the Horticultural Extension Agent and Master Gardener Program Coordinator with the University of Florida Institute of Food and Agricultural Science, Extension St. Johns County. And that's a mouthful. So, Terra, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm very thankful that you can join us virtually in this Zoom format, and we appreciate your flexibility.
Oh, well, thank you so much for the invitation. I'm really excited to be here. I think this is going to be a fun program to do moving forward. It'll be a new outlet for reaching the community.
So, do you want to tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. So I've been an extension agent for IFAS for the past 6 years. My background before that, I've been in horticulture my whole career, 20-something years. Started off with my undergrad at Virginia Tech, and from there, I just fell in love with horticulture. So I've worked at nurseries, botanical gardens, landscape design. At some point in the early 2000s, I decided to get a master's degree. So I went to a quaint little school in New England called the Conway School of Landscape Design. It was a wonderful experience, and that's where I learned all about sustainable landscape design. So moving forward, that's been my focus in my career. I did own a native plant and herb nursery and landscape design business for 10 years in West Virginia before moving here. So I was very fortunate to get a job with IFAS Extension about 6 years ago. I absolutely love it. I love being a resource for St. Johns County residents on all things horticulture related.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what exactly IFAS does?
Sure, absolutely. So we are a county, state, and federal partnership. So I work for UF, but it's a partnership with the county. So anyone's ever been to our office, they'll know that we are located off of Agricultural Center Drive, which is it's near Anastasia Mosquito Control. It's across the street from the St. Augustine outlets. We typically have a ton of programs there. Some of the other departments that I work with would be Family and Consumer Sciences, 4-H, Agriculture, Sea Grant. So we have different departments, and our purpose is to provide research-based information from the university and share that with the public.
So you'll also take questions not from the different organizations that you work with, but just from the general public as well?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. So daily we'll get phone calls, emails of all things horticulture, from how to prune your tree to diagnose what's wrong with your turf.
So if people who are watching this program afterwards, if they have additional questions for you, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Okay, good question. So they can either call or send an email. Let's see, the office phone number is 904-209-0430. And my email is terraf@ufl.edu.
Oh, fantastic. Well, let's go ahead and get started about what we decided to talk about. I know there's been a great surge in people who are interested in doing their own home gardens. And we thought that this would be a great opportunity for you to go ahead and tell us, first of all, for people who have never really done any gardening before, like how to go ahead and get started. And we'll be also discussing different plants that are appropriate for different months of the year. So, Terra, assuming that somebody has never gardened before in their life, what do they need to think about and what do they need to be kind of looking for?
Okay, so some very good questions. And you're right, there has been an upsurge in interest in vegetable gardening since the pandemic started. So happy for this opportunity to help get the novice started. One thing to pay extra attention to is your soil preparation, your ground prep. So we get a lot of rain in Florida. We have a lot of pests in Florida because we don't get those hard freezes. So it can, and on some levels, be a little bit more challenging than gardening a little bit further north. So things to keep in mind are raised beds will be really helpful because that will help with drainage, especially when we get these heavy rains. It's just going to help the gardens drain more so they're not sitting so soggy as long. So I would say raised beds, whether you mound them, like just a big mound with soil, or you can create a raised bed with, wooden sides. Up to you on what materials you want to use. I would suggest also getting your soil pH tested, because pH will determine if the plants are able to utilize the nutrients they are provided. So for most vegetable gardens, an ideal pH is going to be 5.5 to 7. There are some that are going to want more acidic, like blueberries, strawberries, but 5.5 to 7 is a pretty average range for a vegetable garden. We do offer free pH testing in our office. For that, you can bring in, a little baggie full of soil, and we actually have a desk right in the front there. You can drop it off, fill out a form, and someone will get back to you in the next week or so. If you want a more extensive soil sampling, which I do recommend, if you're going to go through all the effort to set up your beds, there is a soils lab in Gainesville on UF campus that I refer people to all the time through email, and they will test not just the pH, but also do a nutrient analysis where you can get the macro and micronutrients assessed. And this is really good if you're a long-term gardener too, who's been working on building up your soils, because after a while, you may have more nutrients in there than you realize, and at that point in time, you could actually cut back on some of your fertilizers. So anyone interested in that, the best way is just send me an email, and I'll send you the direct link for that lab.
So if a person is doing a raised bed and assuming then that they're going to be adding some additional soil in there, is that the soil that should be tested, or the actual soil that you have underneath, or does it make a difference?
So the soil that they will be planting in. So it would really just depend on how high up you built the soil. So ideally, the mound of soil or the raised bed, it's going to be a combination of whatever native soil is there with organic matter, such as compost, mixed in. So I would actually get the native soil tested before mixing the compost in, because when you mix in compost, it actually skews the soil test results. So for that question, test your native soil.
Fantastic. Okay. And you had mentioned soil amendments, or how to, once we get the results, what do you do next to maybe boost the soil in particular areas? You had mentioned compost. Are there other things that we should be thinking about?
So compost is an ideal solution because it will alter the texture and drainage capacity of your soils. It's going to add more oxygen. It's going to increase both the water holding capacity as well as the nutrient holding capacity. With Florida's sandy soils, if you think about it, they just drain so rapidly. So compost is going to help the soil hold in what you add to it more easily.
So Tara, are there things that we should take into account when actually placing a garden somewhere, certain parts of the yard?
Oh, that's a very good question. Yes. So for a vegetable garden, you want it to have at least 6 hours of direct sunlight, and you want it to be in a yard that is well drained. So not an area that's going to be swampy. And you don't want an area where there's going to be a large tree casting too much shade onto it. A little bit of shade can be helpful, especially in the summer, but you don't want the whole garden in shade. And I would like to go back to your previous question about soils. So because yes, compost is very important, but compost does supply nutrients, but it doesn't necessarily always supply all of the nutrients that are needed. So often you still need to add fertilizer or other amendments to supply nutrients to the plants.
And will the fertilizers depend on what you're planning on planting?
Yes. So each crop has their own specific needs. Some are heavy feeders and require more frequent applications of fertilizers, where others are light feeders and they don't require it as frequently. So the nice thing about this, if you are new and you are just not certain, where to proceed, We have a ton of publications that make this very easy to understand. So there's one called the Florida Vegetable Gardening Guide. I'm happy to email that to anyone. Or Amy, if you are able to add links to this, that would be one I could send to you. Because it's the Florida Vegetable Gardening Guide, and it is full of wonderful information, everything from how to set up your garden to which crops to select for each time of year in all the different parts of Florida.
Fantastic.
And then as far as the specific nutrient needs for each one, we also have we have publications, we call them EDIS publications, that explain what all the different crops need. So anytime somebody has a question like that, if you can't find it online, send me an email and I'll just send that to you.
Very cool. So that's actually a great segue, talking about the different plants that are appropriate for each month. What's going to be going on in October? Like, what should we be paying attention to right now?
Okay, so October is actually a wonderful month for vegetable gardening, because the summer is really hot and you're limited, and it's maybe not quite as enjoyable to be out there gardening. But now that the weather is cooling off a bit, or we're into fall, you can get back out there. You can spend longer time out there. And now it's time for cool season crops. And there are a lot of wonderful cool season crops that we can plant. So an example for some would be, salad crops, arugula. Arugula is my favorite. Lettuces, spinach, mustards, this is their time of year. And you can also plant some root crops, beets, radishes, turnips, and some brassicas, broccoli, cauliflower. It's a good time of the year for kohlrabi, and strawberries. This is a great time of year for planting strawberries. And also, don't forget herbs. Herbs have their ideal seasons to plant as well. So this time of year, some of the herbs you could plant include parsley, rosemary. Now, rosemary is a perennial, so that's year round, but you can harvest or plant it this time of year. Thyme. The thing with thyme is it does require well-drained soils. So definitely put it in a well-drained pot or in some sort of elevated soil bed so that it can drain. Some other crops you could plant this time of year, coriander. So coriander, that the seed ahead of that is coriander, but the foliage part of the plant, that's cilantro. So you get two seeds in one. And you can plant dill, fennel, garlic, and even ginger. So ginger is a perennial plant in Florida, and there's a lot of beautiful varieties of that as well.
Fantastic. That's really exciting about strawberries. That's one of my favorite fruits.
Mine too. So Florida is actually the winter strawberry capital of the world.
I did not know that.
So because most states, it's too cold to produce them that time of year. But in Florida, that's when we grow them. So anywhere from late September to early November is an ideal time to plant. So if you're watching this time of year, you want to focus on strawberries. They require temperatures between 50 and 80 degrees Fahrenheit and day lengths 14 hours or less in order to develop the fruits and flowers, which is why this time of year in Florida is ideal. And they'll actually start setting flowers in November.
Oh, that's quick. So when we're planting our gardens, are we doing this from seed, or should we be already buying small established plants to plant?
Okay, so that's a very good question. And the answer depends on the crop. So there are many crops, the salad greens, for those I would grow from seed. And root crops grow from seed. But something like strawberries, you're going to want to start with transplants. And for those, you're going to need to purchase from, a very clean strawberry plant from a reputable supplier. So strawberries are technically perennials, which means they grow year after year. But in Florida, because they are so susceptible to fungus, diseases, pests, we start with fresh new plants each season. And you can get them bare root or in pots, either way.
Okay, very good. So are there any other tips that you might want to share with us that we should be paying attention to or preparing for right now?
Sure. So if you are interested in growing strawberries, there are a lot of different varieties out there. The three that are most recommended for our area in Florida are called Camarosa, Sweet Charlie, and Festival. So those are the ones to look for.
Got it. Okay. Let's see. Well, thank you very much, Tara. Unless there's anything else that that you think that we really need to know about?
You're quite welcome. This was a lot of fun. Trying to think if anything major I left out. I would say if you have specific questions about crops to grow, don't hesitate to reach out. Send me an email and I'll send you. We have so much information out of the University of Florida. That's really what we're here for, is to pass that along to the general public. So hopefully this was a nice introduction for you and to get you excited about vegetable gardening this time of year. And if you want to learn more, that's what we are here for.
Fantastic. Well, we'll be seeing you again next month where we talk about some good plants for November.
Oh, I look forward to that.
Okay. Thank you, Tara.
You're so welcome. Thank you, Amy.
Mhm.